Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to Stonehall Sports with me, LP Cruz. So we're back on the channel tonight. It's been a while since I last talked about the Cowboys and where they stand right now. I actually just wrapped the episode of the Freshman 15 College Football Podcast. But I wanted to get back to my Cowboys roots, talking Cowboys football and discussing where the Cowboys stand right now. So it's been a while. Like the last video I did on the Cowboys was the Vikings preview. We talked about the Vikings game. But since then, things have changed. So the Cowboys went into a game on Thanksgiving, beating the Giants very decisively, very soundly, and played again last Sunday, playing the Colts and beating them down as well on the national stage. But kind of to fast forward where we are right now is the Cowboys have a lot going on, and it's not on the field, it's off the field. And in regards to that, it's about Odell Beckham Jr. So for those that have been kind of keeping along with what's happening with Odell, it's been a lot of back and forth. So after the back and forth conversations of will he, won't he, will they have a meeting, have a sit down, have a visit, it finally happened this week where the Cowboys sat and met with Jerry Jones and Odell Beckham. They met for about 2 days with the conversation, and the players are kind of involved with it as well. They went out to a Mavericks game, and the players have these players have always been very effusive in their praise of Odell Beckham and the recruitment of Odell Beckham, which I think is kind of, I won't say it's refreshing, but it's different. It's different. I don't think I've ever seen the Cowboys, at least this leadership of the Cowboys, be so aggressive in their recruitment of another player. But this is kind of where we are with that, with Odell Beckham. So what I wanted to do in this video was kind of talk about both sides of the conversation. I think if you follow me on Twitter, and you're also just in general on Twitter, but you can follow me on Twitter, at SDQ Flight Crew, you're seeing that a lot of the side of the conversations on both sides, if you want him or you don't want him, it's kind of taken a life of its own, and it's become very, let's say, passionate on both sides of the conversation and in both sides of the aisle of you want Odell Beckham, you don't want Odell Beckham. And a lot of people have chimed in. Even today, Terrell Owens chimed in and said that he would tell Odell Beckham not to sign with the Cowboys, to go sign with Lamar Jackson in Baltimore. So what I wanted to do today was talk about both sides of the conversation and kind of maybe either clarify or shed some light as to how both sides see this. So the first thing I'll say also, if you're watching the video, like the content, hit the like, hit the sub button, and share it out there with Cowboys Nation. But here's kind of what I had seen. And the first side, I'll speak to this side of the conversation. There's a factor of Cowboys fans, or a faction of Cowboys fans, that don't want Odell Beckham because of his behavior or the chemistry of having an Odell Beckham around. I kind of want to speak to that too, because I feel like that's a bit unfair to the Cowboys structure and also the player himself. So if you remember Odell Beckham back in 2014, 2016, from that time frame, he was an untouchable figure in the NFL media and also within his own franchise, where he kind of did whatever he wanted. And a lot of things happened, outside of the game, where, it wasn't just the thing with a kick and net. It was a lot of other things as far as how he was comporting himself. And there was nobody there to rein him in. But that happened because that franchise at the time, the Giants, didn't have a proper structure. It wasn't established. If you're a fan in the New York area, the Jersey area, you know that there was no other things going on. He was the only ticket in town in New York. The Knicks were garbage. The Yankees weren't good. It was all about Odell Beckham all the time. And the Giants themselves were not good. So he was the main star, the main attraction. So things like were happening with him, the outbursts, the touchdown celebrations, the whole things with Josh Norman, their interactions, all those things happened because no one was there to check him or rein his behavior in. So he did whatever he wanted. He had the city in the palm of his hand, so he could do whatever he wanted. So that's what was happening back then. But I will say this, in his defense, he's not the same guy anymore. He's not the same person anymore. And he's not the same player either. So a lot of those behaviors, I think, are they're gone. There's no more trips to Miami during a bye week. All that stuff is gone. But I also will say this. You shouldn't worry about Odell Beckham coming into your locker room because of what your structure is or what your team looks like. Like, it shouldn't be like that. I think now with this team, their leadership is so much better. It's so much better. You have to consider who is at the forefront of your leadership. That's Dak Prescott. That's Zeke Elliott. That's Zach Martin. It's different now. So those players, and if you've seen also just Dak Prescott, there's not a personality type that he can't handle. He can handle a Des Bryant. He can handle an Amari Cooper. He can pretty much figure that out. He can navigate that stuff out. You don't have to protect Dak Prescott from certain personalities. So if you're on the fence about Beckham, or you're very forcibly opposed to Odell Beckham based on the personality traits, you're basically misguiding yourself, because the team can handle that kind of person being within the locker room. And to be honest with you, it seems like the people that know him now, just ask the Rams, like, they seem like he's a good locker room figure. He's a good presence in the locker room. So those concerns are unfounded. Like, it's not even a thing anymore with Odell Beckham. He's just fine as a locker room figure. So that's not really what this is. But on the other side, though, the fans that, that want Odell Beckham, you should also understand this too. And actually, I'll harken back to this as well. But the fans that don't want him, talk about maybe the money aspect. The money is what the money is. And I think if you're still harping on money, and a lot of fans do this, where they harp on player salaries and player contracts, these contracts are not set in stone. They're not immovable contracts, not immovable objects. The money that's set in stone with these players, it can be reassigned, it can be restructured, it can be finessed or finagled in a way that it doesn't hurt your team long term. So if he's saying, for example, reportedly, he wants a multi-year contract, and let's just say it's 3 years, $45 million. You can finesse that money if you wanted to do that. You can sneak that money in there if you wanted to do that. As the Cowboys say, they have dry powder in the contract, in the cap space. You can still do that if you had to. So that's not really a problem. It's not an issue. What is an issue, though, is his health. So as the rumors are saying, he's not exactly healthy to play right now. He's not able to play right now. And he may not be able to play for another 5 weeks. Hell, he even told, or it was told by Michael Parsons, that Odell told him he can't play for another 5 weeks. So you're not looking at right now. But of course, if you're the Cowboys and the contracts, you want assurances, you want protections in place that if you do get hurt, we're covered. And that makes sense. So you should never focus on the final figures. It's more so, as they say, the devil's in the details. So either the Cowboys made a contract offer that was about $15 million per season for 3 years, or whatever the case is, as long as you're protected within a contract, in the language of said contract, you'd be okay. So if you're a fan worried about the contract, don't even worry about it. Now, on the other side of this is the other half of the fans that say, well, they want him really badly, or they want him to play right now. I think that also has to be addressed too, and be kind of tempered down a little bit. Because what's going on is a lot of fans think that all of a sudden we're going right back to the same high-flying offense. You sign Odell Beckham, now we're going to be a high-flying set of 3 receivers. Not so fast, because you have to also understand this team is not the same team as last year. They're not going to march out the 11 personnel packages as much as you saw last year. It's not happening. If there's any praise I can give to Kellen Moore this year versus last year, the personnel is being utilized a lot better than he has in years past. The personnel is working a lot better together. Just look at the tight ends. You're playing a lot more 3 tight end sets, 4 tight end sets. You're seeing Zeke and Pollard together on the field at the same time. So if you do sign Odell Beckham, it's not to say that we're going to abandon what we're doing from a personnel standpoint. We're not abandoning our personnel groupings. All we're doing is adding to what we already have. It's just an extra piece to what we already have. That's the whole point. So there's some fans that think that maybe he's going to be, an every down player, or we're going to play a lot more 11 personnel with Odell Beckham. That's not what's going to happen here. He's not going to come in and play 60, 50 snaps. 1, he's probably not ready to do that. And 2, that's not the plan. It's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to add a piece. And I think if you're trying to understand this, it's that if you get caught up in a game where you're trailing from behind, you're down 2 scores in the playoffs, because this team, let's be honest, this team will be in the playoffs. If you're down from behind, you're trying to get back into a game, you have that third option to help you get back into a game. You're protecting yourself in the event of something going wrong. That's where this kind of comes into play. It's just protection, extra backing. You don't want to get stuck into a game where you're trailing and you're having to use a 3 tight end set, having to use Ezekiel Elliott as a pass catching option. You're trying to have yourself covered in case something were to happen, in case you're caught out there having to play catch up. You have a more diverse attack versus not having that and being stuck, and no disrespect, of being stuck with playing Noah Brown with extensive snaps as your third option at receiver. That's the whole point of what's going on. Or if we're to lose Michael Gallup again, or CeeDee Lamb, that's the whole point of what's going on here and why you're trying to add that person. But it's at in case of emergency break glass, you have Odell Beckham. That's what's going on there. But then, of course, if you talk to some of the people that are involved in the conversation and involved in what's happening as well, it's really predicated on the people that are in the middle. And that is the fans that have either been in the middle the entire time or have been on one side of the fence, on the other side of the fence, and came back in the middle. And the fans are just tired of the conversation and they want a resolution. And even today it was said that Jerry Jones, they're still having these ongoing conversations. Nothing is imminent, but they're still having these conversations. I think for the fans, they want just to have a yes or no. Are you in or are you out? And I'm not going to disagree with that. I'm there. I'm dead center. And I'm not riding the fence, but I'm just dead center. Okay, if you're going to sign him, go sign him. But if you're not going to sign him, then let's end all the talk. Let's end all the media conversations. Let's end all the leaks out there, the reports. Let's stop all that. If he's not going to be signed today or sometime in the next coming weeks, let's just stop that now, get back to football, because what's going to happen is that you're creating this distraction that doesn't need to be there. You're creating this ongoing, endless conversation about a guy that's not coming. It's not doing you any favors. And I've never seen this before with the Cowboys. I've never seen this group, almost unified, recruit and pitch to a player. I've never seen that. I've never seen a group of players campaign so hard for a guy that maybe can't even play. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's fine that they're trying to add a player and they're trying to tell their front office that, hey, we want this guy. And I think that's important too. I think it's important that the players are vocal about what they want to be retained or to be brought in. I think that's very important. And I think if that can be swayed and they have that kind of power, it's great. And I think you should use that power more often as a player, if you can, to get the guys that you want. I think that's great. But I've never seen this before. But I also think about this, is I've never seen them asking for a player who's doesn't have the best track record with health as well and has not been the most productive player. And the outgoing, I guess, overtures for that player seem to be kind of almost misguided in a way. But that's kind of how I see it. I think that if you're going to make the move, make the move. If not, just let it go. Because I think people are getting a little bit of Odell fatigue, and maybe even Tank Lawrence as well, who talked about, if he wants to help us win Super Bowl, that's our goal. Great. If not, then I'm over the circus. I think all of us are tired of juggling back and forth with the will he, won't he, is he coming, is he not? And I'm right there with you. I think it's just time to say, okay, he's coming or he's not. And if he's not, let's get the guys behind Noah Brown or behind, or seriously, let's get these guys ready to play if it doesn't happen. That's how I see it. But you guys can let me know. This is my thoughts on the whole situation. I feel like it needs to be talked about, kind of addressed, but that's how I feel. I mean, do you guys see it the same way? Am I off base? Am I on base? Am I hitting the money? Am I just way off on this conversation? But let me know down in the comment section. As always, guys, thank you for watching. And I remind you, hit the like button, hit the sub button. And as always, Cowboys up. Peace.